Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this virtual parent town hall meeting, childcare and the pandemic. I think there'll be an outstanding panel this morning, and it's been very exciting to see all the participants who signed on in the last few minutes. I think this will be a very stimulating and interesting discussion. Let me just introduce myself. I'm Cecilia Zalkin. I'm the president of Advocates for Children of New Jersey, which is a statewide child advocacy organization located in Newark. We are very excited to partner with melanated moms. Who I know have been holding a series of town hall meetings for parents and sponsoring this meeting and a second meeting next week. This is actually the beginning of a partnership we're very excited about in working with melanated moms and Jay Madden Wilson to help us with our child advocacy agenda. Just briefly about ACNJ, for those of you who don't know ACNJ, as I mentioned, we're a statewide child advocacy organization located in downtown Newark. We are celebrating our 42nd anniversary this year, and our goal is to advocate for children. We're not a direct service agency, but we work on laws on the state and federal level to improve the well-being of children and families, basically to give every child a chance to grow up healthy, safe, and educated. We're very excited this year because we have pulled together with the support of many, many people, including parents, community providers, other advocates, an agenda focused on the very youngest children, prenatal to age 3. Which I know is also a very high priority for melanated moms. We have a campaign called Think Babies, which you'll be hearing about a little more at the end of the webinar, that is looking to influence, inform, and help our state leaders make young children a priority when they make decisions about things like funding, the state budget, policy, and regulations. We have learned so much from parents and from providers about needs, and not only needs, but solutions. So we're very excited about this campaign, which is focused on access to high quality childcare for our youngest children, access to evidence-based home visitation for all families, improvement in health and mental health for young children, as well as improving outcomes for maternal and infant health, which I think are all in line with the goals of melanated moms. We are excited about this partnership because we are committed to engaging parents, to hear from you, to understand your issues, but also to help you advocate, to help enhance your voice in convincing our state leaders that change is needed, because really it is your voice that matters the most. So again, this is a webinar on childcare and the pandemic. There's a second virtual town hall meeting planned for next week. I think this will be a very stimulating discussion, and let me now introduce and turn it over to Jay Madden Wilson of Melanated Moms, whom we are partnering with in this webinar. Jay?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Cecilia, for this amazing intro and for this great opportunity to work with ACNJ. You said a lot about my organization and the work that we do, and I'm just very grateful for the partnership that you have given us the opportunity to have. So hello, everyone. Again, my name is Jay Wilson. I'm the founding president and CEO of Melanated Moms. We are a community-based membership for moms and women across the melanated spectrum. We create social impact events that highlight the issues that moms and women tend to face. And instead of just talking about it, we are also solution-based. So we want to bring the issues to the forefront, but also offer resources, solutions with the moms and the women at the table. So this particular event is very near and dear to my heart. I am also a mom. I'm a mom of 2 girls. My girls are 8 and 11 years old. If it wasn't for my melanated kids, I would not be a melanated mom. So I'm really excited about this event. So we'll just get right into it. All right, so childcare and the pandemic. So today what we're going to be talking about is the concerns that many parents may have had about how the pandemic has impacted our abilities to access child care centers outside of the home. So we have a great list of panelists who work in different facets of both sides of the spectrum, both as parents and as professionals. And we want to ask them specific questions that obviously we need to know, but also other parents have introduced to give reassurance and to help rebuild trust for parents in our child care systems, while also working within the new guidelines that have been adapted by our governor. So moving into it, so as Cecilia explained, this is a two-part series. So today we're going to be talking about child care. The second discussion is going to happen next Wednesday. But what's really important about today is understanding understanding the way that the outline of the discussion today. So we're going to first present with our panelists. After the panelists present, we're going to have a Q&A session. So we do ask throughout the presentation and the panelists answering questions, if you do have specific questions, please use the Q&A chat box to place the questions there, and we will address the questions after the panelist portion. Once that portion is completed, we're going to go into a training. The training is to teach and help develop you into your own advocate for your children. The training is called Find Your War Training, which has been developed by the Melanated Moms brand. And last but definitely not least is the call to action. So that's where we ask you to step up to the plate and to be an advocate, and to also lead into our big event, which is Strolling Thunder, where we work with the different policies. Thank you. Where we work with the different policymakers in the state of New Jersey on the issues that affect our families the most, and childcare is definitely one of them. So part one of the discussion is our panelists, and the main overarching question is going to be, what is essential during a pandemic? So our panelists will answer these questions for us, and again, after the panelist is complete, then we will have the Q&A portion, and we'll address some of the questions that you all have. Obviously, we have almost 500 people in today's webinar, so we won't be able to answer every single question, but it is still very important to us. So if there are any things that we do not cover through the questions that have been asked, please direct your questions to our email. You can email us at melanatedmoms@gmail.com. And we will definitely try to accommodate any questions or point you into the right direction for any resources that you may need. Part two is Advocacy into Action, which is the training. After the event is over, for anyone who requires a certificate of participation, we will provide that. You will receive a certificate through us. Just please make sure to provide your contact information. And then part three is the call to action. Lastly, we're going to, obviously acknowledge everyone and thank everyone, and then the announcements of our upcoming events. All right.
Hi, Jay, this is actually Catherine Flagey from AC&J. I just want to interrupt really fast. We're only seeing half of your screen. So is there a way that you could present the full screen?
Yes. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Sure, no problem. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So before we get to our panelists, I want to ask, Where are you all from? As I said, we have over 500 people, or almost 500 people who registered today. So we actually have a poll. We want to know, which part of New Jersey are you from? Are you in the north section? Are you in central New Jersey? Are you in South New Jersey? Please click one of the options in the poll today. So we'll give you a couple seconds there. We'd love to hear from you. If you've ever attended any of Melanated Moms events, you know we're very interactive. So we definitely encourage you to also be in the chat, having discussions with one another, networking. That's the best way for us to continue to have these conversations outside of just a webinar. Excuse me. So please definitely participate in the poll, but also participate in our chat and let us know who you are, who you represent. If you're a parent, if you're an organization, if you're a parent who works for an organization, we want to know who you are. And as always, we want to continue to stay connected with you. So please make sure you visit melanatedmoms.com as well as acnj.org for any of your needs, okay? All right, so I'm going to introduce our panelists. All right. Okay, so the majority, before I get into the panelists, the majority of our poll has shown that 50% of the attendants are from North Jersey. I live in North Jersey. 35% are from Central Jersey, and 15% are from South Jersey. So we're so glad to have you all here. Definitely continue to be a part of this discussion, and we hope that we give you some great valuable information that you can use later. All right, so meeting the panelists. So our first panelist, her name is Jackie Voyet. She is a mom of 2 young boys. Her children are under the age of 5. She has worked in social services for, I think, about 5 years or so. And she currently works for the Central Jersey Consortia as a central intake specialist. So she's also the founder of Modern Melanin Mom, which is a mom support group specifically for Black moms. So thank you so much, Jackie, for being a part of our discussion today. Second, we have Vanessa Dejasus Guzman. She is a licensed counselor, a former teacher, and a mental health professional. She also runs the motherhood organization called Amiga Moms, which is specifically targeted for Latinx community moms. She hosts many different social events as well as focusing on mental health, not just for families, but specifically for our children. Her mental health practice is called Free to Be Mindful, and she is also located in New Jersey. She's in, I believe it's Hudson County. So I want to thank you so much, Vanessa, for being a part of the discussion today. Next, we have Winifred Smith Jenkins. She is a child care provider who has 3 child care centers located in North Jersey. Zadie's Nurturing Den, Zadie's of the Oranges, and Zadie's Early Childhood Center. She has been in business for over 20 years, partnering with her mother and also a mother of 5. She has created great connections throughout the community in North Jersey, and we're so honored and excited to talk to her and to learn more about her work with childcare and also how she's created accommodations with all the new guidelines. And last but definitely not least, we have Sharon Addison. She is a registered nurse with over 23 years of experience. She's also a speaker, author, best-selling author, and a transformation coach. She has worked with many people throughout different facets of healthcare, as well as consulting work. And she is going to be our panelist to speak about the healthcare perspective and helping parents to alleviate some of their concerns with how to deal with the pandemic on a health perspective, or from a health perspective. Excuse me. Okay. And me, I'm the moderator. So a little bit about my background. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for 15 years. I primarily have worked previously with the LGBT community, but I've transitioned into my work here with melanated moms. And I am a humongous advocate for maternal health and public policy. I've done a lot of work with our current governor, Murphy, and the First Lady, Tammy Murphy, on the Nurture New Jersey project and initiative. I am very dedicated to improving the lives of moms and women who look like me, who come from where I come from, and elevating the messages of what we need and how we can create the solutions together. All right, so our part one, what is essential during a pandemic? So this first question we're going to ask all of the panelists, and we're going to talk about the impact of COVID and how it's changed our views. So we've seen how COVID has changed the views on what essential means for families to survive. Today we are asking our panelists in what ways we can reassure parents who have to work outside of their home that childcare is safe and secure while also meeting the guidelines in a post-COVID childcare space. So this question is for all of our panelists. How have your family priorities shifted because of COVID? Lady?
So I'll go first. As a mom, I kind of gave myself permission to let go of things that would ordinarily be a no-go, like cutting my son's hair myself and allowing it to grow into a mohawk because he asked for it, okay? Allowing them to wear mismatched socks or adding color to my daughter's hair. I also took time to bake and play because I realized that play was not just about imagination, it was also about rest and rejuvenation. And during these unprecedented times, when I seemed to be living in a twilight zone, I needed to physically, mentally, and emotionally rest and breathe.
Awesome. Jackie?
I'll say
I can also piggyback off that, but for me, it's also that I can't control certain things. So before the pandemic, I wanted to control everything. I wanted to be in charge of everything. I wanted to just essentially control my life, my children's life, of how everything should go. Now it's more so just kind of go with the flow and, adapt and trust the process.
Sharon?
for me, it's just really this is a new norm for a lot of us. So a lot of us are doing our own hair, our own nails. Same thing for our children. They're not going to the barber, absolutely, to get the pedicures, even with my little nieces who love to do that. So I found that we've become a little bit more resourceful and innovative in the ways that we're doing things and spending time together. So it's pulling back a little bit and also still having some family time.
That's super important. Yeah. And Vanessa?
I'll say it definitely put a lot of things into perspective. And whereas we definitely emphasize going to work before and even schooling, and not to say that that's not important, but really family was at the #1 priority at this point. So we spent with a lot of movie nights, a lot of dance parties, just really spending time with each other and noticing what is truly the priority in our lives.
Wonderful. I know I definitely can piggyback on everything everyone said. I had to learn how to reaccommodate my children in my life, with having melanated moms and the pivot that we had to take because, we're very used to doing in-person events and we had to learn how to shift virtually. But while I was moving the business virtually, my children also were moving their schooling virtually. So having to have a learning curve with them of transitioning that way was very difficult for me, but we had to learn how to adjust. And I also had to realize it can't just be business now from this hour then kid time. Like I had to integrate what their needs were first, and then, you know, make accommodations around my work instead of the other way around. So I definitely encourage you parents, let us know in the chat box, how have your family priorities changed with COVID? We love to hear from you. So let's continue to have these conversations. So the first question, the first direct question I have is for Winifred. If you can please help us understand, how have you adapted to the new child care guidelines to reassure working parents as they return to work outside of the home?
Thank you. To reassure our clients, we did a number of things. First, we changed the name of this time period. We called it the protection phase because our lives will not be disconnected forever. Human connection is not a thing of the past, and abnormal societal distancing is not our forever reality. However, during this phase, we need to be hypervigilant about protecting the health and safety of our babies, their families, and our staff. Next, we created a pandemic task force parent group, and they will be our sounding board, pushing us to think differently and hopefully allies in the reopening of our centers, getting a firsthand glimpse into our challenges and working together to find solutions. We also created a pandemic handbook using guidance from the Office of Licensing, CDC, and other industry leaders. We established new drop-off and pickup procedures, posted social distancing signs, created surveys, and made endless calls, answered more questions than we probably care to remember. We focused on the social and emotional impact the pandemic may have caused our little ones and took great care to create class lists to pair students with familiar teachers and students. Because relationships are a key ingredient to high quality childcare. We rearranged classrooms, removed items that could not easily be cleaned and disinfected, all the while reassuring parents that we would still provide the same level of nurture and academic stimulating care that they had come to expect. Once the class list was in place, we started recalling staff. They needed to be trained and do a check-in with their doctor regarding their ability to return to work. We created checklists and devised new procedures to keep them and their families safe, empowered our staff to call us out if we made mistakes, and let them know we're all in this together, because at the end of the day, they are on the front lines. They're up close and personal with little people who have a hard time wearing a mask and social distancing. We had to reassure them that we would do everything in our power to keep them safe as well. Because now more than ever, they were the glue that would hold this whole operation together, and the point of contact for parents during morning drop-off and pickup. If they were not comfortable with all our new procedures, it would be really obvious. Next, we tackled the safety precautions. We sourced and purchased cleaning supplies and personal protective equipment, contactless thermometers, reduced our hours of operation, posted signs to remind us all that we were operating during a pandemic, and looked into high-end disinfecting equipment to make sure we got it right the first time. We power washed our play equipment and spent hours disinfecting. Every move we made and continue to make, we let our parents know. We offer them full transparency into the seen and unseen workings of a childcare facility. If we're ever in a position of uncertainty, we instantly set up a Zoom call with parents to discuss our challenges. We have truly tried to make our parents understand that we are all in this together. I strongly believe it is this level of vulnerability that has provided our parents with the reassurance they need to leave their most prized possessions in our care during these unprecedented times.
I think you touched on so many great things. One thing that really stood out, you actually just said, was vulnerability. I think people often forget that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's actually a strength. So to understand that we're all dealing with this pandemic in our own homes, in our own ways, but asking for help and understanding that the entire process is constantly being processed, not just by us as the adults, but by our children too. So taking the weakness out of being vulnerable by saying, I need help, I need support, I need guidance. I feel like you've touched what parents would need in order to feel more secure and to feel that you are an extension of their home. So I want to definitely give a kudos to you, because that will make me feel much better as a mom, to know that you're understanding of how I'm feeling, and you're also feeling it too, you know, not just from a business perspective, but also as a mother. So thank you. So I know that you also created this really great provider checklist as just a way for parents to ask their own childcare providers in their area specific questions, not just on COVID, but also, you know, understanding how all of these ratios have changed, how the guidelines have changed, and giving them more reassurance with COVID still being a very real thing, you know. So if you can you go through this checklist with us and just tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So I kind of try to find like the 10 top things that maybe parents should be asking their childcare provider. And I want to make sure, like I say, that this is all very new for everyone. So there may be, we also have to breathe, and we have to say we don't know and give us an opportunity to make mistakes, because we will, and then give us an opportunity to get it right. So, but here are like the 10 things I think parents should kind of be looking for and asking. Are you screening staff and students? If so, how, when, how often? The answer for everyone at this point should be yes. Definitely in the morning upon arrival. Students should be screened using one of two methods that the state have allowed, either social distancing or reliance on a physical barrier or partition. What are your group sizes? How many teachers per group? This group sizes across the state of New Jersey are all the same, 10. However, how many teachers per group can really vary depending on your center. What are your hours of operation? Because you cannot mix, you can no longer mix groups, you can't have, let's say, Susie work in room A and then Susie work in room B, then some people have decided to change their hours. So this is going to be a personal question for your center, but it's something to really think about. Do the kids get to go outside? If so, when, where, how often? We know outside provides an opportunity for our kids to grow mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so we want to make sure that all kids are getting an opportunity to go outside. We also know it does help stop the spread of COVID, you know, as much as possible when you're outside of a building as opposed to being inside of a building. So you want to make sure that we're getting them outside. What supplies do I need to bring for my child? This also will vary, but at this point, we cannot share like crayons and things like that. So your center may be asking at this point for you to bring certain supplies that you wouldn't have had to bring before. Does my child have to wear a mask? Everywhere in the state of New Jersey, 24 months and older, a child is encouraged to wear a mask at school. And so you should be hearing that as well. And a lot of parents aren't really happy with that, but if we are to get our kids, you know, back into taking them shopping and things like that, then we definitely want to get them into the habit of wearing a mask. And it's encouraged, so they're learning. Am I allowed in the building? During this time, parents and visitors are not allowed in the building unless there's an absolute emergency. How often are students washing their hands? All I can say is a lot. I think for my babies, we counted, it was like 14 times they were washing their hands, which means that my teachers were washing their hands a minimum of 28 times, okay? But they should be washing their hands upon arrival, before leaving, before and after eating, diapering, toileting, moving between centers, after being outside. How frequently are you cleaning toys and touch surfaces? Again, a lot. This will probably vary per center, but there should definitely be an emphasis on enhanced cleaning. One of the things that we did was we have kind of a bucket of toys for the morning, a bucket of toys for like after you come back inside, a bucket of toys for like after you have snack, and another bucket of toys for after, like kind of before you leave for the day. And what happens if someone tests positive for COVID? Now, the someone and the circumstances for this answer will vary. However, every director at this point should be saying, contact your local health department, okay? Because that's where you're gonna get most of your guidance from. The New Jersey Department of Health, they have put out some other things that kind of give us a guideline on what to do, but we should all be, at this point, have a really good relationship with our local health department because we're gonna need them to get through this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Winifred. These were very, very helpful tips. We will be providing this specific checklist at the end of the event when we send out our email. So when you receive the follow-up email, make sure to click it, open it, and you'll receive this checklist as well as some other great resources that you're going to receive throughout the presentation. So I know that question has come up a couple times. All right. So our next question is for Jackie. So Jackie, again, she is a mom, and we wanted to absolutely get a parent's perspective who not only has children, has small children in childcare, but works outside of the home, and she also works in social services with other moms who utilize resources just like childcare centers and different referral spaces throughout the state. So we're going to ask about your experience, Jackie, but then also we want to talk a little bit about your position as a central intake coordinator and how that also ties into parenthood. So my question for you, Jackie, is can you share how COVID has impacted your views on going back to work outside of the home and utilizing childcare as a working parent?
So I have gone back and forth about this. I have 2 small children. So, you know, COVID has been something that has placed this in my mindset. So I'm currently home right now until September, which is amazing. But I think, okay, as we come to September, when I go back to work, okay, what's going to happen? Okay, I have a small child who was a premature child. Like, are they going to have the right protocols and procedures in? So that's a big concern of mine. Also with my 3-year-old, you know, how are they not watching him wash his hands? Are they washing their hands? I struggle with that, and I struggle with where where September comes into play, and it's a big back and forth for me. So working in home is good right now, but going back into the world and back into the office is a big struggle. And I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and everyone is where they're supposed to be, because you know it's a touchy situation. You know, these are our children. It's not just, you know, something. These are our children. So I want to make sure and ensure that my children are safe and all other children are safe when they go back to school. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I totally agree with you. And I know because we've had discussions as well about when you were looking for positions and how you got to the consortia and the position that you're in now. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you're able to reassure some moms that you work with that you're routing through referrals. How are you able to reassure them that the child care centers that you're referring them to are also meeting these guidelines and that they can trust the referrals that you're making? Like, what are some things that you're giving them?
So that's a common, honestly, that's a common concern with a lot of women. I actually just spoke to a mom recently, and she was debating even putting her child back into the school system. She was saying she'd rather homeschool the child just because it was a lot easier for her, and she didn't have to depend on anyone else to take care of her child the way she would, given that everybody doesn't clean the same way. Everybody doesn't, you know, even agree with the mask situation. So she was very concerned. You know, as a CI, it's important for me to express that, you know, it's a mandate. They're supposed to do these things. They are like responsible for each child. It's very hard to convince. You try to give as much information as you possibly can give, but it is very hard because, once again, these are our children. You know, it's hard to say what someone else is going to do while they're in your care. I think the best thing you can do is also just have a conversation with the provider. I think once you have a conversation with the provider and have an understanding of what it is, what your expectations are as a parent, I think then it kind of lightens the mood. But once again, I think the culture right now in just the community of motherhood and parenting and childhood is very on edge with everything that's going on. I know I can speak for myself and a lot of the mothers that I do speak with during my interactions at work. It's a lot of concern as to, are they actually going to take care of my child once they're there? And then also it's a struggle because you have to work inevitably. Like, we're not going to stay home forever. We're not going to be, able to be remote. We have to go back. So what's comfortable when we go back? Like, what is a day? Like, what is a day like when I'm not there to watch my child or watch the provider? Or, I've even had instances where moms say, well, what if someone's short? Or what if a parent calls out? Or what if a worker calls out? You have to meet that guideline. So it's just trying to find a middle, and it's tough, like, especially when you have younger kids, or you're not there to monitor like you were remotely.
Totally, definitely understand. And we are going to get into it a little bit later on with Sharon, but the guidelines for child care centers versus school-age children are very different. So, the ratios, as well as, some of the things that they're encouraging, some school districts still haven't finalized those plans yet. So, we want to still encourage parents to reach out to their school boards, but also, as you said, and as Winifred said, speaking directly to the directors of your child care centers. And then for you as a CI, just reassuring the parents that all of these guidelines must be in place in order for child care centers to open and to start accepting their children. So I think you're doing a phenomenal job with that. So for some people who may not know, can you just give maybe just like a minute or so, just help us understand a little bit about the referral process through central intake? Can you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, sure. So we receive referrals from so it's Healthy Women, Healthy Families. We receive referrals pretty much from women before they have children, while they're pregnant, post child, anyone who just needs services. So for women and children, so we provide doula services. We provide, like, if you need food stamps. I know during COVID, a big issue was food. Food was an issue. A lot of families did not have the access to get to food. So what we would do is we would receive a referral. We would then find food pantries within the surrounding counties or within the county. And if you were not in our county, we would send you to another county, because we have all 21 counties have this service. So then we refer you just to the county that you lived in. But I know pretty much anything you need, like I said, doula, food, TANF, Medicaid. I know for me personally, I lost my job. So I know for a lot of other moms, that was a hit for them when COVID happened. They lost their job, they lost everything, and they had to restart. So I definitely can identify with the moms calling in and realizing that this is a need, and this is how we like how important it is.
Right.
So
I think that's very important for people to understand, like, being a part of the community solution starts with you being a part of the community. So I really appreciate you sharing, through losing your job, you were able to find this position. And not only is it helping you to thrive as a mother and as a professional, but you're also passing that work down to the moms and women who need it, who look like us and who need things like we did, right? So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we get into the next panelist, I want to make sure we're checking in with the room. Please utilize our chat. Let us know if any of these questions are resonating with you. Let's talk about it. Tell us how can we help you? What are some of the concerns that you are having as a parent? What are some questions that you want us to add to your own personal checklist? Is there any providers here or any organizations that are also offering any resources? We need to hear from you. So please make sure you utilize our chat. We have moderators that are currently in the chat spaces. We're also live on Facebook. So if you have any questions there, we're going to be compiling all of those together. And when we get to the question portion, we're going to address some of the questions later. But this is the time I want you to still be very interactive. Interact with one another, interact with us. We see you, we hear you, we appreciate you. So we're going to move on. So we're going to go to Miss Sharon Addison. She is a dear, wonderful friend of mine, a mentor of mine as well. She was a coach for me as well. But prior to any of all of those things, all of those titles that she has acquired, she has been a registered nurse for over 20 years. She has experience working in the ICU and critical care unit. And I know through the COVID pandemic, you know, I know that you've seen your share of things that a lot of people may take for granted. So my question for you, Sharon, is how have you seen COVID affect your coworkers with small children that you work with?
Well, I tell you, for us, Jane, thank you, and for everyone here for having me, and all of us here, really important information. Right now in COVID, which to us is a new norm, I'm finding that employers, right, have to, or choose to, be more understanding, especially those with small children, and also those who have elder family members in the same household. So I know that was a big deal for many of the people that I work with, and even those, you know, in a different capacity was the big deal. How do I keep myself safe, and then my children, and also my family members? So there were new things that they needed to do. Also, one of the things, leaving work, totally, the clothing, the scrubs, definitely do not wear them in the house. There were things that we had to talk about, or you know, those clogs that we wear, those shoes, we had to get rid of them. Showering, making sure that many people, some of them, if they were able to isolate themselves in a room, separate from the family. So it is the new norm, but people somehow had to work around it, and some chose not to work because it was just so new, and they'd rather be safe, as we would say, be safe than sorry, because we did not know. So now moving into the new school year, I'm certain people are coming up with new ways of how to deal with that. And I'm glad, like how Winifred gave us some information, and I think she has a pretty good checklist that she will be sharing, of what are some of the questions that parents need to ask, so they know how things are being sanitized, how far apart are they going to be. There are going to be a lot of questions, and a lot of school districts are working on it, because right now nobody have all of the answers. But I want to encourage parents to feel comfortable enough to ask as many questions as you can, because, you know, you deserve it. You deserve to know. So yes, there have been changes, and people are moving along with the new changes so far.
I totally identify with that. As a mom myself, my children are school age, and at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, many people may not know if you don't work in healthcare, but in our area, in the tri-state area, the state of New York and the state of New Jersey sent out a letter to all licensed medical professionals, specifically trying to draft for nurses. And I remember when I received that letter, I personally panicked, because, you know, if I'm going to work as a nurse in the middle of a pandemic and I'm a single mom, how can I quarantine myself for my children? You know, so I did have to make the decision not to work. And I'm grateful that things were able to work out for me financially. But I know that there are other moms who may not, or other families that may not have had that opportunity, you know. But I think what I've also learned from hearing or from seeing Winifred's checklist is a lot of those same questions can be applied to school-age children when we're addressing our school boards and talking to the school system to make sure that they start thinking about the same guidelines that child care centers are implementing to keep our children safe, because we also have families who have mixed levels of children, or mixed ages of children. So you may have a newborn or a child under 3 who's in a child care center, but you also may have a 10-year-old who goes to, your regular elementary school. We need to see uniformity as much as possible, along the lines with cleanliness and sanitation, social distancing, and the like, So I really appreciate your insight. So if you can tell us a little bit more about how child care center guidelines, they are not the same as what the Board of Education currently has, but is there any specific questions that you think parents should look for or should ask health-wise, to the school system or to their child care providers?
First of all, especially in the school system, you have to make certain that the children are up to par with their immunization. That's going to be one of the first things they're going to ask. And some parents, whether they choose to or not to take the flu shot or whatever, to make sure they are healthy. So ask about that. Ask about the sanitization. Okay, how are they going to sanitize things? I'm seeing somebody in the chat, they're wondering how are they going to keep them six feet apart, especially if you have young kids. And we have a lot going on. If you have children who are in college too, that's a whole nother ball of wax right there. So ask the questions that, how often are they going to wash their hands? What are the teachers themselves, what are they doing? How often do they have to get tested? Because we even know now in some facilities, you can't even have family members and visitors. So are they going to limit the amount of visitors who come in to the child care centers? And I always say to parents, get as much information, ask questions. Again, I'm very big on that, even to your employers, because what many of the hospitals did, they hired people from out of state. They paid them a ton of money, but because a lot of moms opted not to work. And so, yes, that's one of the things that they did. They chose to hire people from out of state for those who said, you know what, I'm going to sit this out for a little bit. But once again, ask and see how can they best support you, because parents, I'm telling you, don't be afraid to ask any questions. Go to your local city council. Also find out from them, what are they doing? The Board of Education, once again, these child care centers, and also with your employers. It's very important that you know what the new rules are, because guess what? They're changing almost every day. Even while we speak, things are changing. So you want to be on top of things, pretty much so, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. I want to make sure we keep you connected to what's going on. You're such a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So we're going to go into mental health. Oh, man. All right. One thing that a lot of people may not consider is this pandemic has created a lot of anxiety and depression, not just in adults, but also in children. And when we think about a child's mental health, we don't consider that their mind is also still developing. So we definitely have an amazing speaker here today, a mental health professional, Vanessa Dejasus Guzman. She, I'm just so honored to know her, but she has such a dedicated practice to the mental health of children. She also offers a mindfulness workshop, I believe it's daily, where the families can log in, and she does exercises for children, I believe ages 0 to 5. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But she focuses on making sure that the children, their mental health needs are addressed, or first and foremost, and making mental health a family discussion. So I want to thank you, Vanessa, for being a part of this conversation today. So my question directly to you is, what are some ways you've had to make accommodations for the families with chronic or acute mental health issues who utilize your services during this pandemic?
Thank you so much, Jay, for that great introduction. And just to give a little bit of the details, because I already saw a question come up in the chat box, I offer mindfulness classes on a weekly basis to children ages 5 to 10. If you have a very high-functioning or verbal 4-year-old, that's okay too. And this is done completely free and virtually, obviously, since everything that has taken place. So to answer your question, that's something that I decided to make that that shift when everything took place, because I think it's so important for everybody to understand that children show things very, very differently. And although mental health is mental health, there's a lot that we can do as parents, as providers, as daycare, to really harp on children's mental health as far as your everyday things in terms of like emotional intelligence and social emotional learning. Those are things that we as providers, as daycares, and even as public schools that we should be touching upon. So when everything took place, I took my classes virtually and I decided to provide it for free because so many people were going through so much. And they really touch on, again, social emotional learning, emotional intelligence. They're only 30 minutes, completely free. Anybody can log on. And they're interactive so that children are learning through movement, through literature, and really understanding the concept of mindfulness at an age appropriate level in terms of how do they calm down when they feel anxious or when they feel upset or when they feel out of control. And that's something through the past few months that our kids have been feeling, even though it looks much differently, as you stated, than adults show, and that we're going to be seeing more and more, maybe not right away in August and September, but even later on as we get into the school year.
Right. And I know, excuse me, like for myself, I have an 8 and 11-year-old, and the way that they've been dealing with the pandemic has been very different for both of them. You know, my oldest child, she's very introverted, and you know, when I want to ask like, hey, how are you? Can I get something for you? She's like, just leave me alone. But my youngest, she's very open and expressive. And it's very difficult as a parent, you know, to kind of wrap my brain around, like, am I really being helpful? Am I asking too much? Am I not asking enough? You know, so I really appreciate the fact that you are highlighting that the way that the children adapt or the way that they process their stress and anxiety is much different, especially, you know, by age. So you also included this great checklist. We love checklists on how parents can recognize the stress and anxiety in their children, what signs to look for, and how they can help them. So if you could just give us a couple of some highlights of your list here. And again, we will provide this list at the end of the event when we send out the follow-up email, okay?
Yes, so you're right. Everything is going to look different depending on how old the child is. So things starting from, you know, the early toddler age, and some things are still the same into teenage, but obviously they change depending on how old the child is. We have seen great sleep issues. Kids have a harder time going to sleep, even adults have with everything going on, and a harder time staying asleep. So falling asleep and staying asleep. You can see an increase in tantrum intensity. Your kids might be more clingy. They might have a new fear of being alone, or even a regression in bedwetting, maybe an increased, you know, more fights with their siblings, or just more aggression or tantrums when talking to adults as well. Talking to friends and family, this seems to be taking place across the board. So it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with your child. We don't want you to think that. However, definitely keep an eye out if you see any great changes in their demeanor, in their behavior, and it's very likely that it's taking place. Some things that we can do as parents so that we help out our own kids, and these are things that I do with my own almost 7-year-old as well, is that the first thing, I really monitor my demeanor and my level of anxiety or level of frustration, which is really tough because of everything going on. But we want to really check ourselves, check our mindset, and really notice about the way that we are sharing things, maybe even with adults, other adults. But even if your child is playing in the background, they're taking in everything that we are saying. And sometimes they may not even fully understand everything that we're saying, but they know what sounds right and when to insert it in sentences. And as an educator, I see that in schools as well. Oftentimes we say like, how do you know that? And what are you talking about? And they may not even know, but they know exactly where to say it. Go ahead, Jay.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
as adults, we also get caught up in our feelings, especially, when there's a lot going on. And it's really, my work is really based on mindfulness. And for those who are asking, my website is freetobemindful.com. And we really want to make sure that we check ourselves in the state that we're in, because children are not only going to copy our language, but they're also going to copy where our nervous systems are. So if we are more amped and more hyped in, the way that we are talking about things, or even in our overall demeanor, they're also going to copy those things. So we want to make sure that when we talk to our kids that, everything is contagious. So we want to make sure that our calm demeanor is also contagious on their end. We want to make sure that we are calm and consistent when we're speaking to them, that we're available for their emotions as well. And remember that sometimes they just need a listening ear. As adults, and obviously we're all doing a lot of talking right now, but when we speak to kids, we want to make sure that we're listening more than we speak, and that we're engaging in play, especially with our younger children, because they may not have all of the language there, but we are going to see more through their play than we do by just asking them like, hey, how's it going? Because the 3-year-olds may not have that language to let us know. We also want to make sure that we're limiting our news sources. And that's not to say that we don't want to, be aware of what's going on in the world, but we want to make sure that our little ears are not picking up everything that's on TV, or when we're sharing things in our households or on the phone or via Zoom calls, because they really pick up everything. And we want to make sure that we keep an eye on them as they transition back into daycares and schools, because some of them, their anxiety is going to be higher. For the past few months, we've been saying, we can't go out and don't touch anything and make sure your mask is on and we got to keep our distance. And now we're saying, okay, now you have to go. So we want to model that now. We want to start practicing that now throughout the summer, so that when they go into school, they just know, the appropriate differences as to how they should interact with others. And for today's mindfulness class, actually, it takes place Wednesdays at 5. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about, that self-awareness and understanding personal space with others, which is, a really big concern right now with everything going on.
Wow, we can talk about that all day, but this has been so valuable. Thank you so much, Vanessa. So I'm going to go into our last group question, and then we're going to take some of the questions from the audience. So if everyone can, just to be mindful of time, if we can limit our answers to at least 30 seconds to 1 minute. But I want all of the panelists to also respond. So my question for you all is, as a parent, what suggestions would you give to help alleviate the concerns associated with rebuilding trust in child care centers in a post-COVID environment? And can we start with Jackie, actually?
So for me, it's just having the conversation, and I feel like being as transparent as you can be with the provider.
Vanessa?
Again, as I was mentioning before, really making sure that we're checking where we are as adults, and letting them know that they're safe, and not only verbally, but through our actions as well.
Awesome. Winifred?
I think just having the conversations with your childcare provider, asking the questions, and making sure that we as directors are letting our parents know we don't have the answers to everything. We haven't worked in this type of environment before, and so we're all learning together.
Okay. And Sharon, please.
I agree with Winifred about having the conversations, and also making sure that we're holding our childcare providers accountable based on what it is that they say that they are going to do, and just to be very encouraging, and also how we speak to people, because even the adults, I've been coaching and speaking to a lot of moms, even pregnant moms too, who have so many concerns. And I tell them the best thing, I always say that, make sure that you are asking very good questions, because you're going to get the good answers, right? But even when you feel scared and you don't know, Winifred said this is new for all of us. And so just be as kind as you can with your questions, because we know there's a lot of anxiety out there, but just be kind and extend grace when you are speaking to somebody else, and try and get as much information as possible, because remember, the children, they're watching.
Yes, they are. A child just ran through here. So I really appreciate you all for providing such great wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciate the organizations and parents who also are watching and listening to us. All of these great tips. These are our experiences from a personal and professional perspective, but we definitely want to continue this conversation online, offline, wherever you need to utilize us. So we will also be adding to the chat websites where you can find resources through the providers or the panelists, and making sure to utilize melanatedmoms.com and acnj.org for any resources that you may need. And again, if there's anything that we did not cover, or you had specific questions about that we weren't able to answer, we want to make sure to get those questions answered for you. So now we're going to move into our Q&A portion. We're going to just take a couple of the questions just for the interest of time. And so some of these questions will be directed specifically to the panelists. So again, if you can just limit your answer to 1 minute or less, just so we can be very mindful of the time that we have. So for Winifred, if you can answer the question, how is managing the ventilation in the child care center being taken care of?
So I definitely feel like this is a bigger question that's definitely going to need a lot of probably government support, right? Because all buildings aren't created equal. Sort of like, all school buildings aren't created equal. For us, we're keeping our windows open to allow fresh air in. We have some fans going, things like that. But the infrastructure upgrades that are needed for both childcare and for school age and for school buildings is probably extensive.
Okay. And for Vanessa, what are some other resources that you have available on your website for the parents to utilize? You can just give us.
Sure. I have a few mindful workbooks for parents, things about how you can find mindfulness for yourself. There's also mindful listening scripts that you can practice mindfulness with your kids. And there are videos as well linked to YouTube, how you can further explore mindfulness, whether it be on your own or through play with your kids, so that you both start to understand the concepts and lead more mindful lives.
Awesome. And let me see, one more question. Similar to the need of consumers, this question's for everyone. Similar to the need of consumers using nursing home facilities, parents need to access the information on a weekly basis of the number of child care center staff and children diagnosed with COVID. When there is an outbreak at a facility, how is this information being relayed to the public? So is there a current list being provided through to child care centers for like positive people or children?
So I could probably jump in. If there's a positive case, you need to contact your local health department because they're going to give you guidance on what you need to do, how long you need to stay closed, those types of things. You also are required to contact Department of Children and Family, Office of Licensing, to report any positive cases as well. I'm assuming that they will start to generate some type of list, whether it's on a county basis or whether it's on a state level.
Great, thank you. So we're going to move into, so we want to ask this question to the audience. Are you planning to have your child or children attend childcare out of your home? Have these questions or these answers actually from the panelists impacted your decision? Please put it in the chat. We really want to hear from you. The poll is going to go up shortly. So, the answer is yes, no, or not sure. But, if you want to elaborate, please put it in the chat box and we'll address it in a couple of minutes. All right? So at this time, I'm sorry?
Jay, can I jump in really quick? Because I've seen this like a lot. So when kids are in their classrooms, essentially they're considered kind of like a family, the group of 10. So you're not necessarily requiring that group of 10 to social distance. So I don't want parents to kind of leave here thinking, oh, well, I might as well just keep my kid at home if they're not going to be able to play together. It's just that group A and group B can't play together.
Makes sense.
Clear it up.
Thank you so much, Winifred. That really did help. So I want to take this time to thank our panelists, Jackie Voyet, Winifred Smith, Sharon Addison, and Vanessa Dejasus Guzman for being such amazing panelists, such great wealth of knowledge for all of us. And to contact them at the end of the event, we will provide you with their contact information or different resources in order to utilize the services and programs that they have. Okay. So at this time, we're going to move into the training. This training is called Find Your Roar, and it teaches you how to become a social impact speaker. This training is developed by Melanated Moms, and is one of the services that we offer through my website, melanatedmoms.com. So we're going to go right into this. If you decide to stay on and you go through the training, I will provide a certificate of completion. As I said earlier, just make sure to send us your information that you are interested in receiving the certificate, and we'll make sure to get it to you. So I'm going to ask our panelists, if you would like to stay on, you're absolutely more than welcome to, but if you can please just turn off your cameras, and I'm just going to go into the training, okay? All right, so this training is 3 parts. We're going to talk about how you can put action behind the advocacy that you want to see. And the action starts with your words. So we're going to discuss, what is advocacy? What does it look like? How is it actually defined? We're also going to talk about, the 3 A's: authenticity, advocacy, and action. And then lastly, another checklist, the 6 questions, of a social impact speaker, so that you know that you're creating the impact that you want to give. These 6 questions will help you to develop your speaker voice. So, what is advocacy? Advocacy is defined as the ability to offer support to those who feel they are not being heard, and to ensure that they are taken seriously and that their rights are respected. It is also a way to assist people to access and understand appropriate information and services. So we have a lot of resources that currently exist. We had Jackie, who is a central intake specialist, who literally receives questions from all over the state, from parents and other people asking for different types of programs or services that are available in their area. She is working as an advocate in a professional role to connect the person to the service that they need. So that is also a form of advocacy. So for us, when you find your roar, when you're learning about what that means, you're learning a way to advocate on a macro level by representing the needs of a community that you identify with. And in respect for today's audience, we are teaching you as parents and also as organizations that represent parents. We're teaching you how to find the way to roar and create the change that you want to see by changing the narratives of what advocacy looks like in different communities. So who needs a representative? Whenever you are an advocate, you are being thrusted into an advocacy role as a representative. You're representing a specific group of people or specific interests of a community. And that's what we are training you to do today. So representation is viewed in 3 different ways. It's viewed as a visual representation. So that can be, you identify with your audience through how you physically appear. I can be an advocate for women of color, for Black women, for Native American women, for single mothers, or whatever, however you identify me when you physically look at me, that is a visual representation. Intellectual representation is along the lines of academia. If I am a physician, or for me, I am a nurse, I can represent the healthcare community by speaking from the perspective of a nurse in healthcare. And then emotional representation. This one is most recognized for a lot of people, because when you emotionally connect with someone, you can understand the message behind a trial or tribulation that you've gone through and find the rainbow on the other side of it. And that in itself creates a response. So that emotional representation can be recognized throughout different types of identity. It translates across race, across ethnicity, across gender, across socioeconomic paths, and the like. So what is a social impact speaker? So before we can talk about what a social impact speaker is, we have to know what social impact is. So to define it, it is defined as the overall effect seen in a community due to the proposed action intended to create a noticeable change. Social impact serves as a macro level message to bring insight, acknowledgement, advocacy, and action to address an issue. So if in my community, my children don't have proper parks, I can be the representative and speak on behalf of my community and say, my children need a safe place to play. Who do I need to hold accountable in order for this to happen? So as a social impact speaker, you become a public speaker who delivers a message that creates a ripple effect of the change that you want to see for underserved and underheard communities or a specific cause. So the 3 A's: authenticity, advocacy, and action. So we'll start with authenticity. I have this really great acronym called CED. So when you're creating your message, you want to do these 3 things. You want to connect, engage, and deliver. So when you're connecting, you want to go into the communities that you want to represent. You have to go out and talk to the people. Find out what it is that you have as a commonality. When you're going out to do that, then you must engage with them, speak to them, ask them what their personal pain points are and how they need representation. And then lastly, you are going to be the deliverer of the message. So understanding that you take from your experience as a person also a part of the community, but you're also standing as their representative, saying, I want to create this change through the words that I'm saying and through the needs that have been identified by our community. Advocacy. So you will learn the best way to advocate for people. It doesn't require you having 10,000 degrees. You don't have to have 100 credentials in order to do that. Your life experience also adds to your expertise, and that in itself makes your message as valuable as anything else. People often disassociate themselves from being able to be an advocate or a representative for a couple of reasons. One, you may have never seen someone who looks like you in that space, so that's representation. Or you believe that you're not qualified to speak on behalf of other people. You know, that may be a feeling of intimidation. Or last but definitely not least, you have not seen someone offer the right opportunity for you to get started. So having that initiation opportunity. So by going through this training and by talking about the issues that currently affect you as a parent, as an organization, and how those 2 things intersect, you're able to initiate or jump into the opportunity of saying, I want to take action. I want to learn how to do that. And I want to stand up and be that, be the representative that my community needs.
Jay, I'm sorry, this is Catherine Flakey from ACNJ. I'm interrupting again because if I'm not mistaken, you had slides. They are actually not presenting on screen. So if you could present the screen as well.
Oh, no. Let's see.
Thank you for that, and sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine. I don't know why it's not presenting. Can you see this now?
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And as a reminder for participants, we will be sending out these slides as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I apologize for any disconnection there. Okay, so where are we? So for action, when you are delivering a message, you are taking action. You are the first part of creating the change that you want to see. We can't ask for others to stand up and represent us and then do nothing with the messaging, right? So, you know, we want you to believe that the words that you're saying is actually serving a purpose, and your words are also putting you in the forefront as a champion for creating that change. So in order to do all that, my little checklist for the 3 A's is these 5 principles of social awareness engagement. Number 1, don't be afraid of your message. There will be things that you are going to include in your speech or you're going to include in your messaging, and you can't be afraid of opening it up and expressing it. If you don't believe what you're saying, then no one else will. Second, vulnerability is valuable. As we talked about earlier with our panelists, understanding the needs of having a community around you and speaking with people and asking for help, it is not a weakness. It doesn't mean that you are incapable of making decisions or the like. It means that you understand that whatever the issue is far greater than what you as an individual can accomplish. And we all know that quantity of people create change. Not just one person will create the change we need. Number 3, empowerment through education. So this doesn't mean only being formally educated. It means also being knowledgeable of the issue that you are trying to create change around. So for Melanated Moms, one of our biggest pushes is creating more opportunities to improve the birthing outcomes for mothers of color throughout the state of New Jersey and beyond. I can't represent moms and women if I don't know what those statistics look like. If I didn't know that that Black women are dying 5 times the rate of white women in the state of New Jersey, I can't say that I'm able to deliver a message as an advocate for maternal health, right? Number 4, representation matters. So typically, it is very difficult to see different communities be represented with speaking opportunities. So we want you to be that representative. If you are a Black woman from the Caribbean and you want people to understand your feelings as a mother raising a child in America, then you need to be that representative. Don't be afraid of how you show up. You need to be your authentic self, and you will be so surprised how many people will gravitate to you because you showed up as you, as opposed to who you think you need to be in order to deliver a message. And then lastly, don't try, do. So we often get really stuck on preparation and too afraid to actually deliver. I want you to challenge yourself to step beyond your comfort zone and go out and say, I am going to represent this group. I am going to talk and I am going to create change. As long as you know that you can show conviction, you're going to literally be speaking the change into existence. You're manifesting the change by stepping up and saying, I am going to do this. All right. So my last part is my 6 questions to consider when you are speaking as a social impact speaker. Number 1, knowing who you are representing. Number 2, what is your message? What do you want people to learn from your speech? Number 3, when are you going to be delivering your speech? What time of day, what time zone, who is actually listening to it? You have to know who your audience is and when they're able to access the message that you're conveying. Where are you spreading your message? Now, you know, we're currently all in COVID, so we're in a virtual space. I'm actually in Virginia right now, but I didn't want that to impact the way that I'm delivering this message to you guys. So regardless of where I physically am, I want to still be able to deliver. So where you're spreading your message, online, in person, in a park, from your front lawn, wherever it is, you just need to make sure that you know where you're delivering. Number 5, how are you reaching your audience? Are you doing it virtually? Are you sending emails? Are you creating blog posts? Are you mailing them things? You know, you need to know how you're reaching the audience and if it's being received positively, because that is what will create that change. And then last, why are you speaking? You have to know your why. I am personally speaking out of the need to represent communities that look like me and women who have come from where I came from and moms who don't feel that they ever are heard. That is my why. So however I can impact people by constantly having these messages out here in the world, I'm going to continue to do so. That's my why. What's yours? You have to know that. Okay. So now it's time for our call to action. We need you. This is the point where we want you to stop thinking about it, stop wondering if you fit the bill, stop questioning and talking yourself out of it. We need your action. This is the point where we want you to be an advocate. So you've gone through our training, you've heard from our great panelists. Now we want you to step up to the plate and to be one of our speakers for our upcoming event, which is Strolling Thunder 2020. Now, Strolling Thunder has been an ongoing event sponsored by ACNJ and Think Babies. They have gone from the state level to the federal level, going to Washington, D.C., talking about issues that have impacted parents throughout the state of New Jersey and beyond. We need you. We are looking for parents who want to stand on that stage and talk about their needs as a parent. We need you to join our advocacy team. You've gone through our training, you've heard the issues. Now we want to hear from you. What are some issues as parents that you want to bring to the forefront? How can we create that change? How can you start the ripple effect to create the change that you want to see? This is the point where we need you to sign up. So if you are interested, or if you know anyone who would fit this bill or who want that opportunity, we encourage you to type it in the chat box. Let us know, hey, I want to stand on that stage. I want to represent my community. I want to represent my child. I want to create this as a part of the legacy of change for my children's future. And it starts today. Not next week, not 2 years from now. Right now, right here. We've given you all of the tools to be equipped to stand on that stage. And if there's anything else that we need, you let us know. But the first thing we need is your participation. So we need you to type it in the chat box. Let us know who you are, who you want to represent, and we will get started today, okay? So we still got 6 minutes left. Thank you, Jesus. So I want to take this time to not only acknowledge this amazing opportunity with ACNJ, but also all of our great panelists. And here's a resource list of all of the different resources that are currently available through the state of New Jersey that that highlight childcare and that also highlight different support systems for families. Again, this list will be provided for you guys through email when we do the follow-up. But this ACNJ, thinkbabies.org, Melanated Moms, Free to Be Mindful, all of these websites, they're just a portion of the services and referral systems that currently exist. And if you know one or if you are one, we need to hear from you. Type it in the chat box. Let us know that you are a resource. Also, if you go to melanatedmoms.com and you go to Melanated Resources, our Melanated Resources page, you will see an option to enter yourself as a resource. So we want you to add yourself to our list. And if you are an organization or a business who have different services that you want more elevation in terms of marketing and promotion, We need to work with you. We want to work with you. We want our communities to continue to thrive. And in order for us to do that, we need to hear from you. And we want to provide those opportunities for other moms and other women to not only utilize those services, but also know that they exist. So last but not least, just thank you. We appreciate everyone for attending today's conversation. Again, everything that we went over today will be included in the follow-up email. Please make sure to utilize the resources that we have made available. And if you need to contact any of us, you can definitely reach out to me, melanatedmoms@gmail.com, or you can reach out to acnj.org, and we will make sure to connect the dots in any way, shape, or form. Again, coming up next week, next Wednesday, same time, same place, we will be hosting the community discussion around addressing maternal health and equity during civic unrest. And in that conversation, we have a great list of panelists that will be discussing how Black maternal health has been impacted during a pandemic, and how different medical providers, parents, and home visitation workers have all had to find ways to accommodate the needs of our most vulnerable population right now, which are pregnant women. So again, I thank you for joining us. If you're not already, please subscribe to our websites, and please follow us on any social media platforms. Melanated Moms, we are available on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the like. We appreciate you. And if anyone else has anything else to say, any of the panelists or ACNJ, I invite you to do so now. And thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Jay. See you soon. See you next week. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. This is the end of our webinar. We will be giving you back 2 minutes of your time. And again, we will be emailing out the recording as well as the resources listed in the webinar and the slides at a later time this week. So again, thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful day.